Okay. Hello. About time to start, I think. Been getting ready for a few minutes. So today, I've got some interesting stuff to look at. Hold on, let me change scenes. Wait. Oh, right, I changed this, so this should be. You should still be able to hear me, even though that's. Let's close that. Oh, I always forget. This needs to. 1, 2, 3. Don't minimize it, so the chat stays up. That can be closed. Alright. Everything's already here. Can scoot this over a little bit, I guess. So, you might recognize this familiar face here. And be wondering why this is not at all like the cards that I was showing off before, and that is because this is not even from the same game. This is from a different card game prototype that I was working on before the new one, and it was based on One Piece, and each of the, well, let me just go over the design a little bit. I mean, it had, the combat system was like grid-based, so like you have different, you know, attack lanes or whatever, and it was honestly overcomplicated, but, the thing that we're going to be looking at is the class mechanics, because this was each time I've made a prototype for a game, actually, let me turn down the music a little bit. It's a little bit loud. Each time I've made a prototype for a game, there's like one good mechanic, and then the rest of it is like whatever. So my thought process for the final prototype is to take all of these one good mechanics from all my previous prototypes and use all the ones that I can to make a really good game out of all the good parts of all my older games. So the like golden nugget of game mechanic that came from this game was the class mechanic, which I really liked. And the idea is basically each card has a class here. So Usopp's a sniper, of course. And it basically gives them. I can't have the Mario Striker music on. It sounds like waiting room music. I mean, it is basically. Okay, that's better. Anyways. Oh, I didn't even show off my character. I just completely glossed over that, because for me it's not on screen, of course. But yeah, I drew this. And I have my little typewriter and everything. It's just very silly and awesome, and I love it. I think it's fun. And I have to keep in mind that it's there, because it's gonna be, it might block something at some point, and then yeah. Okay. So, I've got the different classes here. Each of them basically would, the card would have a class ability that would allow it to do something. Also, let me know if the audio is too loud. I changed it from last time, so it's a little louder. Okay, sorry, I'm trying to focus. So each class has an ability that they can do just normally, right? Aside from whatever text ability they have a class ability. And these were all over the place. I mean, we have things that they can spend their action to do, things that like triggered abilities that happen when something happens. There's like just passive abilities, I think. More triggered abilities. This one requires 2 actions to do. So some of them require a regular action, and some require what was called a bonus action, which is just basically your regular action would be the same one you use to attack. So to do one of these things like where's one? Spend an action. Right, so the doctor can spend the action that they would normally use to attack to remove a regular status or unconscious from an ally. So that would be replacing their attack action, but in the case of this one, they have to spend both their attack action and their bonus action, which can only be used by things that require a bonus action. And then there's some of these that only require a bonus action, like this one, so they can still attack normally, and do this in addition to it. And it's all over the place. I mean, I said this is a good mechanic, but the execution here is kind of crazy. So I've streamlined it for the final prototype because I wanted to implement the same sort of thing, because I really do like this mechanic. But the problem here is that these are all over the place. There's not a consistency to how these abilities work. But you can see how these are supposed to work. So the tactician is my favorite because it really shows how you're supposed to use these abilities. So for instance, the tactician can spend their bonus action to discard the top card of the Explorer deck, which is a thing in this game. And the Explorer can spend their action and their bonus action to draw an Explorer card. So you could look at the top card of the Explorer deck and then draw it with these two. Or where's the other one? Basically, if someone else was going to draw a card from the Explorer deck, you could use the tactician. You could use where is the other one? The Scholar. The Scholar can spend their bonus action to look at the top card of a deck. So you would use. So if someone's about to use their Explorer to draw an Explorer card, you could use your Scholar to look at the top card, then use your Tactician to discard that card before they can draw it. And that is a really fun interaction, I think. I mean, it really lets you think tactically about what you are. It gives you some more control over the processes that are happening in the game, you know. So, aside from your regular game interactions, you're also interacting with the other mechanics of the game, like drawing cards and gaining resources and stuff like that. And it's like another layer of strategy. Right, so that's the interaction here with the Tactician, the Scholar, and the Explorer. This is the core of what I want these abilities to be. And so when I brought them over to the final prototype, I changed some of them. There's less of them, and they're all formatted in the same way. And so they use the... It's much easier to understand them now, basically, because they're not passive abilities. They don't require 2 actions. They don't require a bonus action or an action. It's only it only requires an action. That's all it says. And there's also this level X thing going on here, and that's because I formatted each of these. So, for instance, the Bard. This card can act to refresh the action of a creature with cost X or less. So, if it's a level 1 Bard, and the card, let's say you have a fighter that only costs 1, the fighter could attack, you could refresh their action with the Bard because it only costs 1, if they're a level 1 Bard. And so the idea is, I've given myself another avenue to, you know, change the stats of the card slightly without it being too complicated, because I can just have, there's only 10 of these, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yep, there's only 10 of these, so it's not too much to memorize each of these effects. And I don't think I'll be adding any more, because these are basically the idea behind these is that they're generic effects for your cards. So if each card has something that they can inherently do, instead of having, like, your skull servants, right? This, oh, that I didn't want to open that. There's no effect here. It's just attack and defense. It has a type. It's like, well, I mean, power scaling has made this practically useless, except for some crazy combos you can do, I guess. But if each card had an inherent ability like this, then you would never have a card that is entirely useless to put in the deck. That's the theory behind it. If each card has a generic effect, then they can't ever be entirely useless. So that's the idea. And with the levels, I could literally just have a symbol with a number next to it, and you memorize all 10 of these, because all the rest of the information that you need to know about the card is going to be on the card. I mean, these markers here, these icons, just tell you their attack type, their weakness, and their creature type. And that's, I could just have these listed. I used icons for convenience sake here, but I will probably actually list these with words because it's easier to remember than trying to remember what all these symbols do. And these don't relate to actual effects in-game. I mean, not like this. Like this, you have to remember what the class ability does because it's an actual effect of the card. But these effects are these aren't effects. They're what do you call them? Archetypes, basically. So other cards will interact with these, but these aren't an effect of the card itself. So that's why we can have this information on here without explaining what they are, because it's not like we have this card is undead, you can bring it back from the graveyard. That's not an inherent ability of undead. It just is an undead. So, but these are an inherent ability of cards. So the idea is this could be the one thing on the card that's not explained with text on the card of what it means. But since there's only 10 of them, and it's easily symbolized by a picture, which relates to, like, an image that relates to the class, and the number that relates to the level, you can just know what that effect is just by looking at it. And these will be on, like, every card, so you'll never forget what they do, really, because you'll be using them all the time. And this is taking up our basically one slot for something on the card that we don't explain, because the more information you include on a card that you don't explain is like more mental real estate that you're taking in someone's brain. And they can only think about so much at one time. So like these things, for instance, you don't have to think about unless there's effect in play that relates to them. So when you are looking at a card, you have to keep in mind the effect that it has, the class ability, which you have to remember what it does. You don't have to remember what the text does. You just have to, because you can read it. The number is there, so you know that already. You might have to keep track of the number, which is another thing, but players can keep track of a surprising amount of information when playing a game, especially with a deck of cards that they are familiar with. So they don't even have to remember their own card effects because they've memorized them already. At least by the third or fourth time that they're playing a game, they've probably memorized most of the cards in their deck. That's my experience, anyways. So really, they're just thinking about their opponent's cards effects. These parts of the cards are like not even visible to them because they don't care about them until they actually come into play. And this ability will be the one thing on the card that's not explained that they will still remember, and there's so few of them that I can just put these listed on a card as a cheat sheet for new players who can't remember. And that's this is all prepared like this because I know that this is like I just played enough games and thought about design enough and listened to designers talk about the design of the game to know sort of how much information a player can keep track of. And this is I think this is fun enough of a mechanic to take up that one slot that we have. So yeah. So let's actually look at these. I brought back the tactician, but now it can, there's no effects that discard cards now, because milling cards is annoying. I don't like effects that mill cards. I mean, I will probably have effects like that, but not, they're not going to be class abilities. I have to skip this one. It's too loud. Hold on a second. Let me get a drink of water. Okay. I had to check that I actually muted my mic for that. I think it muted. Wait, let me try again. I've never used the button here. Okay, yeah, it totally worked. Awesome. So I brought back the tactician, but now I can, now it basically puts the top card of a deck on the bottom of that deck. But it's any deck, so it could be your deck or an opponent's deck, and either their dungeon deck or their regular deck. Or your dungeon deck or your regular deck. It's very versatile. But it doesn't actually provide too much of an advantage even when you're doing it with a lot of cards, because ultimately those cards are just getting cycled back into the deck. They were being put on the bottom, but it's not gone forever. And I haven't even figured out what I'm going to do if a player runs out of cards, because losing based on running out of cards just is terrible. The whole idea of the game is to play with the cards. And, I mean, ideally in this sort of game, you will not be running out of cards anyways, because the game should not last that long. I don't think. But anyways, each of these is... I've based most of them on classes that I had before, but obviously this game uses different mechanics than this game, so there's not, for instance, a helmsman, because there's no ships in this game that have to move or anything. The musician still exists because I like the idea of being able to give a card another action. It's just fun. and it's limited, so you can't refresh the action of like a super high cost powerful card unless you have a strong a high level bard. So that's how these are supposed to be balanced. The Explorer is also sort of balanced. I mean, card draw is definitely a little better than some of these other abilities, but you draw X cards and then put X cards on the bottom of your deck, so it's it should be balanced. You're just basically, I mean, this gets better faster than the Bard gets better, like they at different rates, right? Because refreshing the action of a cost 3 creature, for instance, is not as good as drawing 3 cards and then discarding 3 cards, or putting 3 cards on the bottom of your deck. Because this is much more of an advantage. But these are not meant to be entirely standardized. So these don't have to be entirely balanced with each other because, I mean, none of these are really so much better than another one, but they don't have to be completely balanced with each other because there's, because basically I have full control, at least at the moment, of what level each card is going to start out as. So there shouldn't really be a case where people prefer one type over another, as long as I balance the game correctly. And even if they do prefer one type over another, for instance, the Spy is not as useful as these other ones because knowing what cards someone has in their hand is not going to help as much as, for instance, you know, disarming a trap or something. But it's an option. So that's the Explorer. The Fighter can act to attack with X strength. So these actions are separate from the attack actions, just like in this game. So when it says act, this is basically the bonus action from this game. But basically acting, quote unquote, will be different from attacking. So there's not going to be a weird distinction between acting to attack and acting to do something else. It'll just be attacking and acting are two separate things that a card can do. And so in this case, a fighter can act to attack with X strength. So instead of just giving a fighter straight up another attack, it has a second attack with X strength. So even if they have 5 attack, if they're a level 1 fighter, their second attack they can do is only 1 strength. It's not very useful at all. So it's well balanced, I think. The guard can act to redirect up to X attacks to itself. Now this is the one that kind of is better than other ones, because at level 3 it can redirect 3 attacks to itself. But the thing is, this would be more useful in a game where you're actually protecting your life points, but that's not the case in this game, usually. I mean, it would be helpful to have a guard out when the boss is actually out and you have to defend it. but most of the time you won't need to guard your creatures that much. I mean, it's helpful to play defensively in some cases, but in any case, the guard is still taking that damage. So it doesn't matter how many attacks they can take, really. Well, I mean, it does, but it's not so overpowered to be able to take 3 attacks, because then they're taking 3 attacks worth of damage. They'll probably die after that. So even though in other games it would be really overpowered to have this effect, in this game it should be pretty balanced with the other ones. The healer can act to heal a creature for X health. Now, I don't generally like healing effects as it relates to player health, but in this game, because damage is accumulated over turns for your creatures, this is kind of a necessity. I don't like the idea of healing the boss this way, but as long as we're careful about what creatures we give healer to, it should be fine. The rogue can act to disarm a trap with cost X or less. Now, I think I talked about before how traps work, because you'll basically, well, I don't remember how I explained it before, but I've changed it since then. Because initially I was thinking, well, if you're playing a card face down, they should have a standardized cost. That way, they don't... That way you can't just cheat and pay like a cost that pay like 2 when it costs 4, and just say you paid the cost because they can't look at the card because it's face down. So instead of that, my new idea is that when you play the trap, you put the gold that you're paying for on top of it, flip it over, you know exactly how much they paid and how much it costs, so you can check that they're not cheating. But in addition to that, it works for the rogue class, because they need some way to know whether they can disarm a trap or not, and since they have the levels, which is a number, you can track it like this. So you could look at the number of gold on a card and say, okay, well, that one costs 2, I have a level 2 rogue, I can disarm that one. Costs 3, I have a level 2 rogue, I can't disarm it. But maybe I can level up my rogue and then I can disarm it, right? And I made this a class ability because with something like the Elder Lich, there of course needs to be abilities that disarm traps. And it needs to be a regular ability, because otherwise fighting the Elder Lich requires you to have specific cards in your deck, which is crazy. There shouldn't be cards that require you to have a certain type of card in your deck to deal with it. It's just annoying. Well, I mean, you could build your deck without a rogue, but it would be dumb. I mean, it doesn't cost that much real estate in your deck to have at least one of these in it. One of each of these, and even then, all of your cards will have one of these classes, so you'll probably have one of each anyways. I don't know how much the average deck size will be at this point, but... Okay. Then the Scout, we covered. Look at the top X cards of any deck. Easy peasy, effect, pretty good. It works well with the Explorer. I mean, I think it does. It's much better with the Tactician, because you can look at the. It lets you look at the top cards of any deck, which I think is different than this one. Because before it was the Scholar, right? Look at the top card of a deck. Oh no, it is a deck. Okay. Well, Now you can look at the top X cards of any deck. So you have a level 2 scout. You can look at the top 2 cards of an opponent's deck before their draw for their turn. Then you can use your level 1 tactician to discard the top card. Or, well, you're not actually discarding it, but yeah, basically put it onto the bottom of their deck. And yeah, so it's not a very good ability on its own, but of course it works well with the tactician. It works okay with the explorer, but I mean, with the explorer you're getting the cards anyways, so there's not really any point. But the spy lets you look at X cards of your choice in an opponent's hand, so you're picking a card randomly from their hand to look at. It helps win the game, the war of information, I mean, I guess. This isn't, I don't have a plan for any, like, spell cards yet. You know what I mean? Like, cards that you play straight out of your hand, they have an effect, you put them in the graveyard, that sort of thing. I'm not sure. I probably should add something like that just to make this effect more useful. But I don't know if it works for the design of the game yet. We'll see. We talked about the tactician, and the thief lets you steal X coins from your opponent, which is just good. And the fun thing about this stuff is each of these abilities will have some sort of effect on your opponent's strategy just from having them on the field. Because you have a thief on the field and you're using their action to steal coins from the opponent every turn, then the thief will immediately become a priority to kill, right? And that makes things interesting because they might already have a priority to kill a certain card, like a fighter that has like 5 attack or something, and it's a level 2 fighter, so they have an extra 2 damage attack or something. So they might already be like, okay, well I gotta take out this guy because they're killing all my things, and now you've also put pressure on them from a different angle. So just having abilities like this will change the way people play the game, and it's gonna be awesome. Okay, so was that like half an hour of explanation? Well, after all that, we should probably start actually... Oh, right. The other thing that I meant to talk about today was the resource system. Because before I knew it was going to be gold. Okay, this is... It always seems like a little bit too loud for me. Resource system. I knew it was going to be gold, but I didn't know how much they would be getting each turn, what the sort of resource economy of the game would look like. I didn't know if I was going to add more different types of resources. I still don't know if I want to add... I might want to add 1 more type of resource or 2. I don't think it'll be more than like 1 other type of resource if I do. But only because... the there's a sort of like granularity to card cost that you can only get by having different resources, because when you have cards that are, when all of your cards are played with the same resource, then every card that has the same cost, which will be a lot of them, will all need to be balanced exactly with cards with the same cost. However, if you have cards that cost things with different resources, so if I have gold and gems, then I can have cards that cost 4 gold, I can have cards that cost 4 gems, and I can have cards that cost 2 gold and 2 gems. And each of those can be balanced differently because they're not the same cost, and it requires doing something different to get that cost and play that creature. Which is like useful design space for other games like Magic and Pokemon, and I don't know. There's so many games followed Magic in doing the like 5-color wheel of resources. I don't think I'll really need that in this game because the resource system in this game is going to be a little different, I think. Because also it'll be the resources in this game will be cumulative, or at least gold will. So you're gaining gold each turn, and it piles up over time. So even if you can't play something on your first turn, you can save that gold for your next turn. So if I do have another resource system, maybe it should be a resource that works differently. So I was thinking about having gold be that you get 1 gold each turn for each dungeon, for each room in your dungeon, right? And the idea behind that being that you will always have at least 1 room in your dungeon, no matter what, even if like you played 1 dungeon room and then they somehow had a card that destroyed a dungeon room or something and made you discard it, you would still pick up, like, bring another room. Because whenever you don't have a dungeon room, you put 1 on the field, because you have to have 1 so that they can clear a room to go to the next. Yeah. So no matter what, someone will always have at least 1 dungeon room, which means they will always have, if they're gaining 1 gold for each room in their dungeon, then they will always have some amount of resources to work with. And it encourages people to play rooms, which will, because rooms are useful in that the effect that you gain from them, but they're also putting you at risk because they have the clear condition that moves your dungeon tracker forward, which will bring out your boss eventually, at which point you can be killed. So without a reason to play the dungeon rooms, for instance, their effect, people would be inclined to play defensively and never play rooms except for the ones that they get for free when they have no uncleared dungeon room, because they know they're going to get 1 for free each time someone clears their room, because then they have no uncleared dungeon rooms left. So they'll get 1 for free, and then not only did they save on not giving them another avenue of clearing a room, but they get all of their dungeon rooms for free. So that is a problem in the design because slightly. I mean, you could just as easily play a bunch of dungeon rooms and gain a huge advantage because you have all these different effects working for you. But making it so that you also get gold from dungeon rooms would mean it's another added benefit that is practically required because you need gold to play cards. So you want to have as many rooms out as possible, even if it's going to put you at a disadvantage, because you'll be vulnerable to them clearing the rooms. You would still want to so that you could play more of your cards to get more of an advantage on your opponent. That's the idea behind that decision. I mean, thematically, I don't know how much it makes sense. You'd probably be paying gold to upkeep your rooms, but in this game you'll get gold for the rooms, I think. So if I had like a gemstone resource, I would probably want it to be something rarer than, something, or if I had a secondary resource, instead of having it be something you get every turn and it accumulates, it could be something that it's either rarer and you can only get it in a certain way, like maybe there are only certain cards that can get gemstones or something, or it could be a resource that is not cumulative, so you have to spend it in a different way, so you are more inclined to spend it than save it compared to gold. Something like that. But I haven't fleshed that out at all yet. So, yeah. Okay, I've actually... I think I need a break for a second, because I'm kind of out of breath from talking for so long. And then when I come back, because it's been about an hour, a little bit less. But then when I come back, we can start working on a few cards, giving them classes, thinking about how that will all work, and giving them costs, keeping in mind the new mechanic for the gold resource. The bosses still will not have a cost though, because they will always come and play for free, whether you like it or not. But yeah. Okay, let me switch over to waiting rooms. And I'm just going to edit this. Hold on, where does it say? Oh, here it is. Okay, and let me mute, and I'll be back in like 5 minutes. know what I just realized? The audio input for the waiting screen is still the old one. It's not actually... So I'm probably still really quiet on this screen, but on the other scene, it's louder because I changed it. So that's it's probably a little weird. I don't really want to change it right now though. So we'll just get back to it. And I won't minimize it because it'll make chat go away. There we go. Alright, so first of all, let's work on the skeleton. And we can close this now. That's been shown off sufficiently. Let's see. I'll just open. Where is it? There we go. Minions. This was the thing that bothered me actually about this is this card has no effect. I mean, basically this sucks. It's a 1/1 that has no effect or anything. I mean, who would use this? It's barely useful as a blocker. Except, I forgot in this game, that doesn't mean anything because you're not blocking your own health. So, this needs to be redesigned. There needs to be a reason for this to exist. Because otherwise it's just a liability. Even if you can keep bringing it back. What, are they just going to clear your rooms by defeating monsters, right? Right, for anyone who wasn't here last stream, the way that you beat this game is by clearing dungeon rooms. Let me open one actually, just as an example, because I've been talking about it, but this will be a short explanation. The crypt, yeah. This is the one we made last time, and you can see the clear condition here is defeat 2 undead. So if you had a skeleton out, like in this case, when you play this card, you get 2 skeletons. Those skeletons are super easily defeated, so this is... I mean, this is not great. You're playing... I mean, you basically be playing this card knowing that this condition would immediately be cleared, and you would immediately move forward on the dungeon tracker. So, like, you probably wouldn't want to actually play this card, except it's totally worth it because of this effect. It's so good. With the Elder Lich anyways. Using this in a different deck would be so bad, it's just, you would never ever play this card. Because the Elder Lich can bring back your undead. So if all of the creatures in your graveyard are undead, this is totally worth it no matter what. Anyways, wait, oh, actually I need to... There was a reason to have this open still, I think, right? Where was the... Hold on, let me open the... One Piece... Did I never put the... Oh, no, I did. It's just not on there. Okay, hold on. Let's open this. There's something I need to grab from here, which is this icon. Oh, wait. I forgot I put the... I was hoping for the blank gold symbol. I don't know if I even have it anymore. Okay, well, I'm just gonna close this. Let me get a new one. Gold, blank gold coin. I'm sure this is what I Googled last time to get that. Is it this one? It's fine. So, copy image. It's not transparent. I'll open up Sprite, which is I use this for everything. I could probably do it in here, but this is just my workflow. I don't know how to do everything in each of. Okay, that looked terrible. It needs to be a higher tolerance. I don't know how to do everything with both of these programs, so I switch between them depending on what I need to do. Can probably go to 50 maybe. Okay, that looks okay. And then I can just drop it in here. Like this. Well, looks kind of crappy, but doesn't need to be great. And we'll put this in, what is it here? Because I didn't think about this until I watched a video about it, like earlier this week. But they said you should put all the important information on the left side of this card, because when you hold it in your hand, you'll see the left side, so probably part of the name might be covered up, but the card cost, if it's on the left, you know, when you hold all the cards in your hand, you'll be able to see what stuff you can play and stuff, so that's, I think I was putting everything on the right-hand side before. And I need a new layer with text. Okay. Why is it impact font? Well, that might be fine. It's just, okay, that's not what I meant to do. One. Okay. This is way too big still. Still too big. Okay, that's good, I think. And God, that looks bad. Hold on, I have to change the font here. I don't know why you have to triple click to edit these. It's weird. What this should be? I know I have some fun ones in here. It's so hard to pick through all of the standard fonts that come with. Well, maybe this will look okay. It's a little more cartoony. I like the Lapsus Pro Bold. It's just the Super Auto Pets font. It's what I use for my waiting screen. I mean, this is all temporary anyways, but let's, I didn't make, class icons. So that'll be an interesting, thing to pick out, but let's think about what class would a skeleton be? It's sort of the most basic undead. Of these... Hmm. Hmm. Maybe scout? They're kind of, they're like the frontline soldiers, you know? I mean, I think that makes sense. So let's go to our favorite Emojipedia. I use emojis for stuff all the time. They're just fun. So for scout, we could do paw prints, we could do magnifying glass, although magnifying glass would make more sense for the spy. But there's a spy emoji, so we could definitely, yeah, let's do the magnifying glass. Magnifying glass. Oh, come on. So I think this will go down here with the creature type. I mean, it would make sense to have creature type class, like undead scout, just kind of reads well. I mean, this information, like I said, it's icons right now, but I will probably switch over to having it be written text eventually. Although I don't know. Maybe the class icons will stay icons. And I accidentally messed up the zoom. And it's bothering me. Okay, hold on. I think this was 90%? There we go. This is scout. And we need the number next to it. So we will have this like this. Level 1. I'll use Louse's Pro again just because the font is way too big. It needs to be like 10? That actually might be too small. No, actually it should be. No, it should be really small. Okay, white. And then... And I lost it. It's off screen! So we would have it like this, And then put this level. And yeah, it's layer style. Stroke. We'll give it a 1 stroke? No, 2 stroke. Oh, okay, it definitely needs to be bigger than that. 100%. This needs to be normal, not multiplied. And good. Okay, so now when we look at this, oh wow, it does not like staying at 90. Okay. So now we see the magnifying glass, level 1. It's a level 1 scout. So now this is already looking better. It's a 1 cost, level 1 scout. You can spend its action to look at the top card of any deck. If you have... You know, that actually is the thing about these. The class abilities don't stack. So if you used 3 level 1 skeletons, you wouldn't get to look at the top 3 cards of any deck. You would get to look at the top card of any deck 3 times. But luckily, you can choose any deck, so if you had multiple, you could look at the top cards of every deck. Like, so if you had 4, you could look at the top card of every deck on every turn. That's pretty useful. Even just on level 1. Then we need to make this a little bit, needs to have a little bit better stats. Because just purely based on the fact that right now this guy goes down in 1 hit. No matter what. And I think I always like starting at 1 for the sake of simple numbers, you know? So if this was the worst card you could have, it'd make sense for it to be 1. To me. Like, I don't really like games where it's like 100, 1,000 numbers, because I get that it gives you more granularity, because you can basically do decimals without the annoyingness of thinking about decimals. But it really just doesn't get any simpler than regular integers that aren't greater than like 10. But in any case, this guy's too weak, so we need to buff his health a little bit, because he's just so useless right now. Especially since in this game, unlike Magic, for instance, you choose who you're targeting, so a 1/1 is already much more terrible than it is in Magic, because in Magic you can play a 1/1 and then just not block with it, so they could still destroy it with a spell or something, but they could keep it around a little bit, in which case you could still use this ability. But in this game, since you're choosing who to attack, this is just total garbage, because they can destroy it immediately with no consequence. I mean, they will take 1 damage from attacking it. It's just not worth it. So we're basically setting the new baseline, right? 1/1s, we can't do 1/1s unless it's got something about it that makes it worth it to be 1/1. Like maybe it has a strong ability and a low cost, so it's a 1/1. But this has no strong ability, it should be, let's think about this. Even 2 would be better at this point. But if we think about the average stats of the champions, well, sorry, this is kind of a bigger decision than it sounds like it is, because I mean, when you think about game balance, it does kind of come down to what card is the worst, right? I mean, this is my idea for the baseline of the minions, is the skeleton. So this has to work the way I want it to base all of the other minions off of and create a balanced system for the resource cost. So if we're thinking, you pay 1 gold, which you get at the very start of the game because you already have the 1 dungeon room at the beginning of the game. So you could play this on turn 1. It's not very strong. It will survive 1 hit from a thing with 1 damage. And you can use it to scout, which is not entirely useful, but it's about as useful as you can get with a 1-cost card in this particular case. Yeah, okay, I think it works. Because then we could say most 1-cost cards are pretty wimpy. But the advantage is you can play them at the start of the game, like on literally turn 1. And if you have effects that summon them, these are the perfect things to be summoned because they are wimpy. So if you could create a lot of them without overloading the game balance, really. I mean, 2 health doesn't prevent it from getting 1 shot from, like, the Lich's Apprentice, for instance, but this costs 4. So you can't play it immediately. And since I'm thinking about that, maybe instead of having a champion in play at the start of the game, which is what I was initially thinking just to speed things up, that was before I knew how the resource cost would work. And if you're accumulating gold over time and it carries over between turns, then this is not really necessary because we could put the champions in the lair at the beginning of the game, which, just as a reminder, the lair is where your boss card, your boss card, and your boss room are at the start of the game. Because they're not in your deck, they just come out when your dungeon is advanced to the last room. So we could and the lair is also where champions retreat to. So we could still have you starting with a champion, but it's not in play. It's just in your lair, which you can play it from. So it's like starting with one in your hand, basically. Which would make it more balanced because then you would still have to pay the cost and wait an appropriate amount of time to play them for that cost, which would mean that Skeleton would not be useless to play on turn 1 if you had a card like this, which could instantly one-shot it, because the only other cards that can come out on turn 1 would have similar stats. Okay, I'm feeling more confident about this now. I really had to figure this baseline out to... I really had to get past this before I could move on to making all the other cards work and stuff. I mean, um, I still made these cards earlier without knowing the costs or the game balance or the class abilities, but I kind of have to do this design stuff out of order because I won't know exactly how the game should be balanced or how it should work mechanically until all of the mechanics and the first set of cards kind of come together. And it's starting to. I mean, we're starting to see the image of how the game will start. I mean, turn 1, you'll get a dungeon room in play immediately from the top of your deck, a random dungeon room from your deck. Then you'll have your boss and your boss's room in your lair, which you can't play until later. You'll have your champion of choice in your lair as well that you can play once you can pay the cost. You'll have other champions in your deck which you can draw and play once you get them. You'll have minions in your deck which you can draw and play as you go. You'll have minions you can play on turn 1 that have a low stat total, not very useful abilities, but they cost 1 and you can get them out on turn 1. Like, it's all coming together now. Before, I didn't even really know how the game would play, so I just had the idea for the mechanics. It's nice to see it come together, though. Okay. I thought about if this should have stats or not. Or, not stats, sorry. An effect or not. But... I mean, we could give it an effect, but it's literally 1 gold, right? I think this should be the standard and should just not have an effect. Well, if it's not going to have an effect, I guess we should say maybe it should be a 2/2. No. I'm trying to think of, like, if we make a 1-cost card with an ability, which will probably happen, then there needs to be a trade-off to balance it with this card, which is not very useful, right? Which means that this card needs to be balanced in such a way that even if it doesn't have an effect, it's still balanced with the cards that do have an effect, which would usually mean that it has a better class ability, or it has a better stat total. So right now, the only design space we have for that is if we made a 1-cost card with an ability of some sort, it would have to be a 1/1, or have an even worse ability than just looking like it would have to be like a spy, which is just not useful, really. Yet. I swear it will be useful eventually. It's just it doesn't give you too much of an advantage, especially, well, I'm getting away from my point here. My point is, if we want to be able to make other cards with 1 cost that have an effect, its stat total should be higher to make it balance with those. Or we could give this one an effect, and then later make a 1-cost card with a higher stat total that's balanced with it. I guess it should have an effect. because I want to keep it. I mean, it's a skeleton. Thematically, it makes sense for it to be weak. Um, and I like the stat line for it as the baseline for our cards. So let's give it a simple ability. I mean, the obvious thing to do here would be give it reanimate, because it's pretty easy. It makes sense. It's not. Well, the problem is reanimate actually gives this way more value because you can play it from the graveyard for 1 gold, which means you can get it back every turn basically. Which is a little bit too good actually. Probably. In that case, it really would need to be a 1/1, I think. But I do still think it should have some sort of effect. So let's give it... Let's take a look at the... card description. We still have a description here from a different card. God, I forgot how bad this looks. It's so small. Okay, this will be... should be something advantageous, something that thematically makes sense for a skeleton, and something that's worth the cost, that doesn't make it exceed the cost of 1 gold. You could give it something simple like, when this card dies, deal 1 damage to a creature. Or 1 damage to a... yeah, 1 damage to a creature. Because... it gives it, like, slightly more utility. Even if it's 1-shot, it's gonna deal an extra damage. I don't know that it works thematically, though. And also... I wonder if even that is a little bit too good for 1 gold. Maybe we could do something with the scout. So let's take a look at this again. So it's a level 1 scout. You can act to look at the top card of a deck. Oh, I have an idea. What if we, what if we give it slightly more utility? So, let's say it's scout, it can scout, right? So what if we give it the tactician's ability of being able to put a card on the bottom of the deck, but it's from a specific deck, and it only happens once when it dies. Right? That sufficiently limits it to being balanced to this ability. So let's say I guess thematically this would be like bringing it, dragging it under when it dies. I don't know. Something, um, what is death grip phrase meaning? I feel like this could be the effect name. I don't. No, that doesn't work. I was thinking of. I was trying to think of something that thematically makes sense for the reasoning behind why they would put a card on the bottom of the deck after they die. I mean, it's the equivalent of milling one card, basically. Where's... Oh, yeah. Actually, maybe it actually should mill, like literally mill a card. Like mill a card from the top of your deck into your graveyard. Because that's actually good for the Lich's deck, because it can reanimate stuff. So it's basically the same as drawing a card for the Lich, because you're putting if it's a creature, you're putting the creature straight into the graveyard, which you can play it from the graveyard, so it's the same as having put it in your hand, essentially. But that actually puts its utility a little bit higher than I really want it to be. There's gotta be some phrase that works with this. Like, I'm thinking of like the phrase "dragging you down with me," right? It's like this idea that the skeleton is taking something down with it after it dies. I don't know what would work though. If you have any suggestions, you can drop them in the chat. I'm not always good at coming up with the little names for the abilities here. Could be oh, I know. No, that's a little bit too good for. I'm thinking maybe like I can't think of a better name for this ability right now. Let me just gonna put this and then say oh no, wait, this should be, oh well, I'll italicize it after. think of a better name for it after. Maybe after I see it, I'll think of something better. But I think it should either put the top card of your deck or put the top card of your opponent's deck at the bottom. And I think it thematically makes sense for the when this card dies, when this creature dies, put the top card of an opponent's deck onto the bottom of that deck. And it should specify opponent's...
Even if your team's not in the same place,
What the?
your work can
Stop.
be. You just need Asana.
Unskippable
Asana
ad.
organizes work,
What the?
so teams know what to do, why it matters, and how to get it done.
I should
Try
at
it for
least
free at a
mute it. Good lord. No ads on my stream. Okay. I lost my train of thought. Okay. I don't think I need to specify... No, I should have a name for the regular deck, but I don't know what it's supposed to be called. Because there's the deck that has the creatures, the minions, the champions, the traps, etc. And then there's the dungeon deck that has the rooms in it. But I don't know what the actual normal deck should be called. I guess I'll just say creature deck for now, even though that's not completely accurate. And I forgot I need to... And that is a typo. This needs to be top card. That's another typo. And there. And the ability needs to be italicized. I still wish I could think of a better idea for the name of this ability.
So, this is one of the
What
more
the hell?
unusual pieces in my
Hello? Oh, why does it start playing something else right after the end of the playlist? Why would I ever want it to do that? I was actually talking about Kodak earlier, about the video that I saw talking about the card layout. But we're not watching it on the stream. Okay, the ability, whatever. The ability is called Lost for now. It's fine. I just can't think of anything better. But anyways, I think this works. Because putting a card from the top of the library to the bottom of the library doesn't actually stop them from getting a card. It might, and because you can scout, it could be a good card, and it's the specific card, or the specific deck. It's only your opponent's deck. It doesn't give you an advantage with your own deck. It's, I think it all works thematically. It's not too much of an advantage. It only happens once. It's 1-2. Yeah. I think this works as our baseline. And I need to close this actually now. That we don't need to look at that file anymore. Um, this is starting to look pretty good. Okay, let's do the zombie next. This one, I think this one can be our 2 cost. I think we're probably going to rebalance a lot of this actually. So let's save the skeleton. We're actually going to need to use this again because it has the new icons and stuff that we don't have on the other files yet. So let me open the zombie. I don't think we looked at these this time, but this is no, we did make these last time. Yeah, yeah. So what is this zombie going to be? We need to give it a class, first of all. I think tactician works for this one, even though it doesn't really make sense to call a zombie a tactician because they're not at all thinking. But the effect of putting a card from the top of a deck to the bottom of the effect is a nefarious act, which I think works well for a zombie. Maybe it is a little too tactical for a zombie, though. What would work good for a zombie? These other effects are still... they're very utility and aren't very thematic for a zombie. Maybe a guard would be good for a zombie. Or I guess just fighter? I guess that's all they think about is fighting. Or eating specifically. Okay, I think I will go with tactician. Even though it's... whatever, maybe I'll change the name of this, but I don't think I will. I like the name tactician. But it's fine. Let's get a symbol for tactician. What's a good symbol for a tactician? They have, they're smart. Oh, a brain! It's perfect for a zombie! Okay, I take back what I said about it not being thematic, and now it works great. Right, okay. That's so funny. I'll grab the level icon layer to just drop it on here. I need to re-add the stroke. It should be 4, I think it was, right? 100% normal. I don't know why it defaults to that. And it'll be a level 1 tactician. I think this is going to be a level 2. I think it's going to be a cost 2. Speaking of which, we need the coin and the cost. Oh, this should be moved down to here and be renamed to cost. Okay. Let's move these down again. I'll make a standard one with all the stuff on it later. With all the right layers on it and everything. And the cost will be 2, I think. We could make it another 1-1, but because it has reanimate, I think it should be at least cost 2. Because then it's slightly enough that you would want to spend that on something else. Probably. Unless you have nothing else to spend it on. In which case, it's the perfect thing to bring back. Okay. Let's put this at 90 again. Alright. It has reanimate. It's a 2-2. I wonder if this is too good for a 2 cost. I think it's alright. It's a little stronger, but maybe it should still be a 1-2, but it has a better ability and a better effect. It does have more weaknesses, though. Well, not sure how much that matters. I guess why would you... I guess you wouldn't really reanimate it if it was only a 1-2. So this is probably good. If it turns out that this is a little bit over the power curve, we'll readjust it. By the way, I've not talked about that at all, the power curve for this game, because I have no plan for it. I mean, aside from what I'm literally doing right now, giving everything a cost and everything, I have no way of knowing what the power curve will look like. It's just something I'll learn with time. Okay, I think this one's just actually done. I don't think it needs another ability besides this. This, like I said, this has reanimate, so it's going to be one of the undead that you can kind of use in other decks, unlike the skeleton, which is less useful outside of a undead deck with the Elder Lich, which can reanimate it. I mean, it's not that much less useful, but that is why it's a higher cost, and it's just like slightly more useful. But yeah, okay, we'll save this. Oh, I don't need to do that. I can just Control S. Okay, that one's good. This should be saved. I think it wanted me to... It had the little asterisk, which means it's not saved. which I think is just because I copied layers from it. Okay, I kind of want to make another minion now. And then I might wrap up stream. I'm not actually too tired yet, but we've been going for a while. I don't think it's been 2 hours yet, which is usually what I shoot for. Well, okay, it's almost been exactly 2 hours. God, this is so much fun having this little guy here. I minimized it again. I always do that. I love that sound, by the way. That was a great choice to make it that sound for the anchoring the thing. Reminds me of like a Mario game or something. I think you can hear it. It's on. It's a part of the desktop audio. All right. Let's make one more minion. We'll work out some other costs later. We've made some undead already. Let's make something different. I don't know. If anyone has a request, maybe we could do that. Or else I'll think of something. There's probably another, like a ghost or something we could make for the undead deck. I have like an idea for a haunting mechanic, but I explained it last time, but it does need to be reworked slightly. Okay, we'll do a ghost. We'll do a ghost. So, before I make the card, let me just draft it up here. So my idea is, it'll probably be 2 cost because I want to give it a pretty good effect that wouldn't really work for a 1 cost card. Health, I think this might work with 1, and I'll explain why in a second. Even though it's cost 2. Strength. Oh right, I do the stat line now. I changed it. So we'll make it, this will be an actual 1/1, I think. And the reason is because it's not as easy to kill as that. We might even make it a 1/1 that costs 1 because it's a 1/1. But the effect is really good. So the idea here is attack type. What would the attack type be? I think magic. Yeah, and then archetype, undead, and I think in addition to that, we'd also have a ghost archetype. I think. And this is going to have the effect, where is it? Oh, I don't have it listed here. It's probably in the, these are old ideas from the first draft of this game, which was literally nothing like this. But it had the same combat system, which is why there's keywords down here. Here. Oh, that's, I don't think I wanted it to be Spectre. It should be, I want to give it immunity to physical damage because it's a ghost. But it can still take, So if even though this is physical and melee, if this attacked a ghost, because it's a physical attack, the attack would do no damage. So even if it was, say, physical and magic, it would still only do 0 damage because it's physical. However, if it was just magic, then it would do damage. Okay, so the idea is it has physical immunity. So let's put that on there. I think immunity as a keyword makes sense because you could just use that for anything like fire immunity, etc. So we'll give this. Oh, we still need to put the weakness. I think we'll give it a weakness to magic. Or, oh, magic or holy, probably. Oh, okay. Sorry about that. I forgot that I did the stream later today, than last week. So I'll probably have to wrap up pretty quick, but we'll do this first. We'll give this physical immunity. Oh, that's the wrong. That is the wrong. I meant to do that. Okay. I guess that doesn't need to be capitalized. I can't remember if I capitalized those or not. From physical attacks. That's it. That's the ability. That's why it's a 1/1. And you know what? We will make it cost 1. Because people will have other attack types besides just physical. They will probably have some that are just magic. And also, my idea for weaknesses, well, I don't know if we want to complicate this, but I had the idea that if they have a weakness to a certain attack type, then they would take 1 extra damage from that in that attack type. But I think that complicates it a little bit too much, because, for instance, if they had a physical magic attack, it would do no damage because it's a physical attack, but it would do 1 extra damage because it's a magic attack, and it's weak to magic, which would mean it would still die even though it's a physical attack. But I don't know if I think that overcomplicates it too much. And it's a little bit unnecessary. So let's just not do that for now. And since this is all that's going on the card, we can... Oh, and the class. Right. It does need a class. What makes sense for a ghost? Explorer? Spy? Thief? I feel like a spy makes sense for a ghost. And it's, it already has, like, a pretty good effect. So, it doesn't, like, its immunity to physical damage means that it probably will last a few turns on the field without dying. Which is really good for 1 cost card. So I think Spy, being an effect that doesn't offer too much and thematically makes sense for a ghost because they can go through walls or whatever. So let's do that. We'll just use this template still. Let me grab a... Well, we'll just start putting in card information here. Card name. Ghost. Let's center it. The cost is 1. The stats are 1/1. It's undead. It's also a ghost. I need a Emojipedia again. I wish I could grab these at the same time. I don't think I can. Actually, if I group them, that should work. Right, I can do this and this and group. Quick group. And then select the group and move it. Oh, that totally does work. Great. So this is our first with 2 creature types. That's cool. And it works because Tactician, the class ability is the only one that has a number on it, so you never have to confuse what these mean. And they could have multiple class abilities too, once we get to higher costs. That'll be cool. Okay. And also, this is not a Tactician. This is a Spy. So let's grab Spy. Well, Detective, Sleuth, whatever. Microsoft. Covers of the magnifying glass. Well, whatever. Then we need the other information here. The icons for the attack type is magic. So let's get rid of the physical and melee. Then its weakness is magic and holy. So need a second one of this. Just scoot it over. Oh, I accidentally moved it down. Okay. I think I could have moved it over faster, but don't worry about it. And fire. Turn that off. Okay. Then the card description should be physical immunity. The description is: this card takes 0 damage from physical attacks. Okay. No, don't wait. There we go. Oh, and it's around here that we need to enter. Like this. Yeah, I don't think 0 damage will fit in there, so. Okay. And picture, lastly. What ghost do we want to put in here? This guy's... I remember him being cuter in my head. It kind of looks weird. Whatever. Of course, this ghost is not really friendly, but... Well, I guess it only has 1 attack. I think this is the right layer. There we go, yeah. I love the Metopia soundtrack. Oh, and around there. Why am I doing so much work and this is totally temporary? Okay. Stupid. Alright, great. It's another one in the books. And we will export it instead of saving it, because I don't want to save over the zombie. Ghost.cra. Then close it without saving. Okay. That's gonna be it. I will probably do... I don't know. There's been sort of a theme of me explaining a bunch of stuff at the beginning of stream for like an hour, and then doing a small amount of making cards. But now that we've got more of the mechanics worked out, I'll probably be doing more actual making cards and less talking about making cards. So we have that to look forward to. And I'll probably do some other sorts of streams at some point, but but I'm doing this to keep myself motivated and continue working on this game every week so that I don't stop doing it and I finish the game. I mean, I absolutely at least 100% have to get it to the point where I can play test it, because that will give me a lot more motivation to keep working on it. So with that, that's going to be it for today's stream, and thanks for coming. This was fun. I'm definitely going to do this again next week if I can. Probably will. I really, you know, it just is a matter of me making time to do it. I don't know if I'm going to have a real standard time of doing this, because I probably don't want to wait till this late to do it again. I just stayed up late last night, so couldn't do it at 12 like I did last week. But yeah. Anyways, thanks for coming, and see you again next week. See ya.